receiving a diagnosis of dementia can be huge. It can be life-changing, and I think just sort of acknowledging and recognising that before, rushing out to do anything or thinking, oh gosh, we've got, lots that we need to plan for and set up. So, yeah, sort of acknowledging that huge emotional impact of such a life-changing diagnosis. And for some people that might be time, emotional support that they need.
You're listening to the Care Podcast, brought to you by Unique Senior Care. We share honest and practical conversations to help you navigate the care journey, whether you're just starting out or already facing some tough decisions. If a loved one is diagnosed with dementia, it can feel difficult to know where to turn. Our guest today, Sarah Cooper, is an Admiral Nurse who specialises in supporting families with dementia. She's also the Deputy Lead for the nationwide Clinics Programme for Dementia UK. Thanks so much for joining us today, Sarah.
Thank you for having me here today, Jo.
Tell us a little bit about your background professionally.
Yeah, so I'm firstly a registered nurse. I did my training in adult nursing, and more recently, so 6 years ago now, I became an Admiral Nurse. And some people may still not have heard of Admiral Nurses, but our role is as dementia specialist nurses, and we're professionally supported and developed by the charity Dementia UK. So yeah, that's my sort of professional background. I do have some caring responsibilities. I'm a befriender in my spare time, so I support a lady that is a friend of the family that's living with Alzheimer's. So visit her once a week and provide some support to her and her husband.
Oh, how wonderful. And how long have you been visiting that lady?
Well, that as her Alzheimer's has progressed, that's probably been for about the last 6 months now. Yeah, mainly to give some companionship to her, but also to give her husband a bit of time out as well.
Oh, fantastic. And that's so important, isn't it? If you're supporting someone with dementia, actually making that time to have a break.
Yes, yeah, certainly.
Sure we'll talk more about that as the episode goes on, actually.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about the process? If someone is worried about their relative, perhaps they are showing some signs of memory loss, forgetting people's names, getting confused. What are the first steps towards getting help and if appropriate, a diagnosis?
Yeah, well, this is one of the most common things that people approach us about at Dementia UK. So it might be via our Admiral Nurse helpline or one of our clinic appointments. But yeah, people that are concerned about their loved one's memory, or they've noticed a change in their cognition or their personality, we would always try and encourage that person to have a conversation if they can with the person that they're worried about, and they may have already tried that. It can be a really sensitive subject, talking about memory loss and mentioning that word dementia, but yeah, we would try and encourage that open conversation first. If the person is willing to do something about it, and they may well have concerns about their own memory as well, first step would be going to see their GP. So dementia can have lots of far-ranging and different symptoms. For some people it might be memory loss. That's sort of the most common one that we tend to think of and associate with dementia. But it could be, like I said, changes in personality. It might be struggling to concentrate, lacking motivation, might be problem-solving skills might be affected, and all of them things could be having an impact on someone's day-to-day life. So, yeah, first and foremost, we'd recommend going to see the GP. Is it helpful to just say a little bit more about why? That's a good first point of call.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so there isn't really a single test that we can do for dementia. So the reason for seeing the GP is to check what might be causing them symptoms. It could be something like an infection, especially if them changes have happened quite recently. It could be altered blood levels, so it might be someone's thyroid, it could be that they've got a vitamin deficiency, and also just thinking a bit more psychologically, it could be maybe that they've got anxiety or low mood. So if it is one of them things, there's something that we can sort of treat and do something about before assessing someone for dementia.
Yeah, and it's really important to recognise that, isn't it? Because we often hear that people delay going to the doctors.
Yeah.
And on average, it can take up to 2 years from people first having symptoms to actually getting a diagnosis. But if people went sooner, they may find that actually it isn't dementia at all. It's something very easy to sort out, like a urine infection, or another physical issue. Fear is, I would say, the biggest factor that stops people from making that first step. Would you agree with that? And if so, how do you kind of get over it?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a really good point. We know that dementia is one of the most feared healthcare conditions for ourselves, for the people that we love. And I think you're right. There's, that's often a barrier to someone wanting to explore that or find out that might be what their diagnosis is. We know there's also a lot of stigma still attached to dementia. People may have had personal experiences themselves. They may have cared or supported a parent or a grandparent that had the condition, and that experience might not have been a positive one. So, there's still a lot of stigma and fear around the condition. But like you said, the sooner we sort of know what we're dealing with, or what treatment support might be available, hopefully the more positive that outcome will be for that person.
And even if it does turn out to be dementia, what are some of the benefits of getting an earlier diagnosis?
Yeah, so I think firstly it would be, knowing what you're dealing with for you and for your family members. It can be sometimes reassuring for someone, it explains what they might have been going through, and that, there is a reason for the symptoms that they've been experiencing. We also think a big sort of plus or benefit of getting a diagnosis is thinking and planning for your future as well. So whether that be what you want to happen to you, or what your care might look like in the future, and sort of having them more broader conversations perhaps with your family, friends, people that are important to you. There's also, I mentioned that word, treatment options. So there isn't currently a cure for dementia, but there are some medications and treatments out there. And again, the sooner we know what we're dealing with, there might be options to start some treatment and medication.
And some of the treatments are actually more effective earlier on in the diagnosis than later, aren't they? So getting that earlier diagnosis might actually affect how helpful the medications can be.
Yeah, certainly. So some of the dementia medications that are currently available, the earlier they can be started, the better, really. They do have sort of what we would class as mild symptom control. So that might be for sort of the memory, also helping us go about our day-to-day activities. And that would be in sort of the mild to the moderate stages of Alzheimer's the medications are applicable to.
What you've obviously dealt with a lot of families and people living with dementia in your career. What are some of the biggest worries that people have, and is there anything that you can offer to reassure them, or any practical tips in terms of actually managing the care of that person or managing the condition when they first have that diagnosis?
Yeah, so, receiving a diagnosis of dementia can be huge. It can be life-changing, and I think just sort of acknowledging and recognising that before, rushing out to do anything, or thinking, oh gosh, we've got, lots that we need to plan for and set up. So, sort of acknowledging that huge emotional impact of such a life-changing diagnosis. And for some people that might be time, emotional support that they need, adjusting and coming to terms with the diagnosis. in that stage, we would sort of suggest and encourage people to share that information with those that are close to them. So that might be immediate family members to begin with, and you know, taking that out to the wider family and close friends, neighbours, support networks, in the hope that then people would, you know, have more understanding. Also in them first stages, it's about, you know, education and learning more about the condition, why that person might be experiencing some of them symptoms, and that might help to reduce some of them fears and anxieties. I think a lot of people worry that you know, it might be their independence that they're going to lose, or that's going to be taken away with a diagnosis with dementia, but that doesn't need to be the case. So yeah, exploring what support is available out there, what changes might be able to be made around the house or the place where the person lives to make it safer, to make them more independent, to keep living, you know, an independent life as possible. Yeah, does that help answer some of them?
Definitely. So you've mentioned changes to the house.
Yeah.
Could you give us any examples of some changes that could be made and how those have perhaps helped someone with dementia to have a better quality of life?
Yeah, so I suppose it's thinking about things around the house that might pose a risk. So that could be, you know, something, maybe a trip hazard, whether that's a rug or electrical cables. It could be things that perhaps cause a fire risk. So that could be maybe, you know, cluttered environment. It might be things like electric heaters, you know, maybe something falling on top of that posing a fire risk. And also just trying to help sort of organise the house and that person's daily routine. So it might be labelling things or making certain places for, say, the TV control, or where the keys are put to, you know, for the house or for the car. I think just mentioning car just made me think about driving as well. And a lot of people worry that with a diagnosis of dementia, they maybe would lose their ability to drive, or, you know, their driving licence. But that, again, doesn't have to be the case. It's all very individual circumstances and assessments that would take place for that. I mean, it's definitely worth mentioning when we're talking about houses and living environments, all the assistive technology that we have available these days. And that doesn't necessarily depend on the person being able to use or operate them. So things that can set daily reminders, maybe to prompt medication or to prompt meal times, you know, to have a drink. It can also be things like maybe setting up lighting around the house, so, you know, sensors when we come into sort of darker evenings, that kind of thing. We've got things like doorbell cameras these days, which again can monitor safety coming and goings from the house, that kind of thing as well.
Brilliant. Yeah, there's such a lot of technology that we have access to now that 20 years ago, you know, we might have seen it in a film or something, but actually in reality now it's very accessible. I don't know what I do without my Alexa reminding me to do to do things every day.
Yeah.
So it's great that people can think about that as a way of supporting their loved one to stay independent and to stay safe.
Yeah, I think around that topic of independence as well, there are more simple measures, sort of carrying an ID card in your wallet, or having, you know, an ID bracelet that's maybe got your emergency contact on. Most people nowadays carry a mobile phone. You know, sometimes we can sort of set up devices or tracking apps on there, so that we can, you know, if someone did become lost, or, you know, they were out missing, we can sort of see where they are. And again, that can help to give some people more independence to keep, you know, going out and doing things by themselves.
Definitely, and sometimes with good intentions, we just want to keep our relative or our loved one safe, don't we? But actually, we need to think about that balance between them still having their ability to walk down to their local shop and buy the paper like they've done every day for most of their life, and that there are ways that can make that safer and ways that can reassure us that if they did get a bit confused on the way and forget how to get back home, we actually have that Apple Watch, or we have that way of finding out where they are.
Yeah, I think people, lead such busy lives now. They may well be working and also caring for a family member. So some of these assistive technologies can give sort of reassurance and peace of mind. A lot of people are caring from a distance. They might not be able to get to their loved one's house in 5-10 minutes. So having things like this around can provide some of that reassurance. Working with local communities as well, so it might be making your close neighbours aware of the memory problems that you might be having, so that they can sort of keep an eye and check in, and sharing contact details so you can get hold of them if you needed to.
And is there a particular website that you would recommend in terms of finding the best assistive technology, or is this a good question, for example, for your Admiral Nurse when you contact them?
Yeah, I think, again, everyone is so individual, so it's not just sort of one device will suit everyone. I mean, quite a common thing that we suggest is what we call like a memory clock, which will have the date, the time, the day, maybe the season, and what the weather's like outside. And for some people that can be a real game changer and really helpful, but for someone else that might be unplugged every day and put in a drawer. So there's a lot available on the market now. We do have available on our website a sources of support leaflet, and that talks all about assistive technologies, and we do have some links within there of sort of recommended and trusted devices and sites that you can look at from there.
Excellent. So a great place to look at those suggestions.
Yeah, definitely.
Caring for someone you love is one of the most important things you'll ever do, but it's not always easy. At Unique Senior Care, we're here whenever you need support. Whether it's a bit of advice, short-term respite, or ongoing care, we've been supporting families for over 15 years, and you can lean on us too. Call 0808 134 1164 to speak to a care expert, or visit uniquecare.co.uk.
So you mentioned earlier on about your the lady that you befriend and you visit her, and that gives a break to her husband. Tell us a little bit more about the importance of someone looking after their own well-being if they're supporting a loved one with dementia. What kind of things can they do, and how can they get support?
And I think that sort of word or term carer is often not always, people don't realise they've maybe become a carer, or they don't associate themselves as being a carer. So, whatever word you're comfortable with using, but sometimes it's not until someone maybe points that out or acknowledges that you realise you've maybe taken on that caring role. And it can be very easy to take on extra jobs, responsibilities for that person. I think firstly, really important, sort of looking after your physical health. So it can be easy for carers to neglect hospital appointments, dental appointments, opticians. So, really important you're looking after your physical health. And I think hand with that would come sort of your mental health and well-being. So making sure you've got a support network around you. Again, maybe making other family members or people in your support network aware of maybe how much you are doing, and the duties and responsibilities maybe can they be shared out a little bit between different people and family members. I think the things that are useful for all of us, so keeping physically active, taking time for yourself, whether that's going out for a walk or whether that's attending your hobby, your favourite hobby or group that you've always done. And again, it might be that maybe a family member can offer you that bit of support or time, maybe once a week or, every other week, so that you can take that bit of time out for yourself. We always encourage carers to think about a carer's assessment. So everyone that's caring for someone is entitled to complete a carer's assessment, which is done through their local authority. It can often be done online now. It's a relatively easy form to complete, sort of 15-20 minutes that would take, and that may open up other avenues of support, whether it be financial or whether it be, you're given hours per week to have a bit of time to yourself whilst your loved one is taken care of.
And like you said, people don't necessarily think, oh, I'm a carer. Even if they were aware of a carer's assessment, they might not think that applies to them. But really, if they're having to think about, oh, I want to go out for an hour to meet my friend for coffee, but I don't feel like I can leave my loved one, things like that are signs actually that you have caring responsibilities, and that perhaps you need to get that help and support for yourself as well.
Yeah, and that can be very different for a carer that's perhaps living with someone, as opposed to a carer that doesn't live with that person. For some carers it can be 24 hours a day that they're sort of on alert, or, they can't switch off. So it's different, again, for every person. You might not feel ready to maybe take that step or leave that person with someone that's not familiar to you. I think we talk a lot about carers maybe feeling guilty about maybe taking that time for themselves, especially with a condition like dementia. As things progress, it is important that you've got that team and that support network around you. It's very difficult for someone to be able to provide that care 24 hours a day.
Yeah, absolutely. But you've also pointed out that you don't have to live with someone to be a carer. It might be someone that is your neighbour or your friend or your family member, and you're popping around regularly to see them and offer some practical help. You might be a carer as well, and you might need that support.
Yeah, and that again brings with it sort of responsibility and pressure sometimes, and sometimes maybe just picking up the phone to give the Admiral Nurse helpline a call can maybe help us explore what care options might be available for you. Some of them are means tested, some are not. So, we can also talk through and think about what maybe financial support might be available to you. We know that's often a barrier to people accessing support. Maybe they think that they can't afford that, or they haven't got the money for that. So yeah, it's definitely worth exploring what them care options might be, and making sure it works again for that person or that family unit. We talk about day centres sometimes, or maybe social groups, but for some people that might not be something that they've ever been comfortable with doing. They might not be that sort of outgoing personality. So yeah, maybe then we might look at more options like companionship or befriending in the home, or more of a one-to-one basis.
Absolutely. And you've mentioned the Admiral Nurse helpline.
Yeah.
So if you're not linked in with an Admiral Nurse already and you do want some advice, is that the best first place to contact?
Yeah, our Admiral Nurse helpline is nationwide, so all across the UK. We even have people contacting us from abroad. They might have loved one living back in the UK. Admiral Nurses are dementia specialist nurses, and we do have just over 470 of us now working across the UK. In a range of different settings. Some are in hospitals, some are in social care, some are in hospices, myself working on our clinics and helpline. And so that is the first port of call, really, to check whether you've got a local Admiral Nurse in your area. Some people call us and they'll say, I'm not sure what I'm ringing for today, but, something's prompted me to pick up the phone and call you. And, sometimes it's just chatting about life in general, living with dementia or supporting someone with dementia. It's a free service. People can call back as often as they need to. We're open 7 days a week. And we have also got a wealth of resources on our website as well. Some people might prefer to book a pre-planned appointment, so you can use our virtual clinics. as either a video call or a phone call appointment. You'll always speak with an Admiral nurse. And there's also the option to book an appointment in one of our face-to-face clinics as well. I can tell you a little bit more about that if it's of interest. I know we'll include some information in that in the literature that goes along with today's podcast.
Yeah, that would be great. Do tell us a bit more.
Yeah, so my role is working as with our nationwide building society clinics. This is a partnership that we've had in place now for a year. We're charity partners of Nationwide, and they are kindly giving us space in their branches, so out on local high streets, to provide Admiral Nurse clinics. We've got a big team of 18 nurses working in these clinics, so we're again right across the UK, from Devon right up until the top of Scotland and over in Northern Ireland as well. On our website you can find where the clinic locations are. So this week, for example, we've got clinics across 12 different locations in the UK. And again, it works on a similar format. You get a 45-minute appointment with an Admiral nurse. However you might be impacted by dementia. Some people are coming to see us because they're worried about their memory and they're not sure where to go or how to approach that. And some people we're seeing, they may have been diagnosed 2, 3, 4 years ago and they're just looking for some reassurance and advice on the next steps with their dementia or their family member's dementia.
Brilliant. So even if you want to have a face-to-face appointment as opposed to a virtual one or the phone, am I right in understanding that those clinics move around? So you might well have one coming soon to near you, even if there's not one.
Yeah, the locations are updated every month. So the nice thing about this partnership is we are going back to the branches on average 3 times a year. So about every 3 or 4 months we're back in that branch location. But yeah, we're covering over 200 different locations. So hopefully we can put you in touch with a local, a clinic that's local to you. We can also, at that point, either on the helpline or in the clinic, we can see whether there's a local service who might be able to give you that ongoing support as well.
Wonderful. And it can be a really challenging time. You talked about when the person first receives the diagnosis, actually allowing yourself a bit of time to process that, because that's a huge change. It's a huge piece of information, and for some people it's really helpful to have that diagnosis. For others it might feel quite frightening, looking forward and wondering how they're going to support their loved one, how they're going to change. So the Admiral Nurse is there just to have a chat and unpack some of those feelings.
Yeah, I think, like I said, sometimes people are not quite sure what they want to come and talk to us about. And sometimes just saying it out loud can help you to sort of have a bit of headspace, process the thoughts, feelings, emotions that are going on in your head. I had a lady come to see me a couple of weeks ago with her daughter and son-in-law. And she'd been diagnosed about 3 months previously, and that was the first time she'd actually sat down to speak about it. So even amongst families, sometimes it's not easy to maybe sit down and have a face-to-face conversation about, the impact it's had or how you're feeling about it. And I think that 3 months was sort of her time to process that. She then felt ready to come and have a chat about it. And she left the appointment, hopefully, and, she seemed a lot more positive. She'd sort of had that time where she was now feeling ready to maybe go and visit that local support group or memory cafe. Just different for everyone how they might, approach some news like that.
And you talked about feeling a lot more positive, and actually a lot of the time people can think about dementia and think about the negatives, and it's going to be a challenge, it's going to be a struggle, and we know it can be, and it is, but also now the emphasis is very much on living well with dementia. So have you got any stories you could share with us about maybe the impact of the Admiral Nurses or someone that you've come across who's actually managed to have that good experience?
Yeah, I think that is a big part of our role as an Admiral Nurse. It's sort of providing that hope for that person or for that family to say, you know, life doesn't stop when you receive a diagnosis of dementia. I think it might feel a bit like that when, you know, when maybe medication isn't offered or isn't available for you. But yeah, we've got lots of really positive examples. I think probably one that sort of sticks with me most is a gentleman that's quite involved with Dementia UK as a charity. He's part of our lived experience advisory panel. He's living with dementia, and he's really sort of campaigns to be a voice of someone living with dementia, and he has been instrumental really in helping us to recruit our team of Admiral Nurses for the clinics programme. So he has sat on interview panels with us, and it's been invaluable really what he's been able to contribute to us recruiting the nurses. He can sort of see, you know, how that Admiral Nurse or that person coming for the job makes him feel as someone living with the condition. You know, do they provide that positivity, that hope? So yeah, I think that's just one example. You know, him and people that work in the lived experience advisory panel, they're attending conferences, you know, they're having say in campaigns that we're running at the charity, and even in their local communities as well, you know, being a voice for people that are living with dementia.
Oh, that's amazing, and I'm sure gives them a real sense of achievement and value at a time when maybe, you know, finding that value is not as easy as it once was.
Yeah, I think, you know, people have still got so much to give, and that again is often something that we will talk about when we speak to a person, you know, trying to focus on the strengths that they have, you know, not focusing on the difficulties that they might be having, all the things that maybe they can't do anymore. How can we adjust this activity or this task so that that person can still be involved and get fulfilment and purpose out of it?
The Unique Senior Care Advice Hub is a free online resource to help you make sense of care. It's full of expert advice, practical guides on things like dementia and funding, and real stories from families who've been in your shoes. Visit uniquecare.co.uk/care advice hub to feel more confident about what comes next.
So it can feel quite isolating sometimes to be caring for someone with dementia. And you've talked about some brilliant ways that people can access that help and support. But you've also got a podcast, I believe, which shares a lot of real life stories, which might be a good way for somebody to listen and feel like they're not alone and get some advice.
Yeah, we have, Jo. It's just gone into its second series now of our podcast at Dementia UK. The first series went really well, and yeah, we have different guest speakers on there, experts, but also again a lot of people with lived experience of maybe them directly or them caring for a family member or loved one. Each topic will be different. So, for example, it might be some, I know from the first series we had someone living with young onset dementia and the different sort of implications that had on them and their family. So yeah, second season has just come out now and is available.
Fantastic. And you also mentioned there are some webinars that people can access as well.
Yeah, so our What Next series, it's 3 webinars. They run consecutively every month. We've just put on some evening ones as well. So the first one is all about what is dementia. So looking into sort of that education, what's physically happening in the brain, what might be causing some of the symptoms. The second one is all about financial and legal planning and advice. So things that we might want to set up or get in place. And the third one is all about future planning, which I touched on earlier. So yeah, thinking about how we can make our wishes known for the future as well.
Great. So all of the things that we've talked about, the podcast, the webinar, we will include the links so
Brilliant.
that our listeners can find them easily with this podcast.
Lovely, thank you.
So just to wrap up, Sarah, what would be the one piece of advice you would give to someone who's maybe faced with a dementia diagnosis and they're feeling a bit lost? What should I do? What would your advice be to them?
Yeah, I think I was having to think about this. Probably just focusing on maybe feelings rather than facts. So we know dementia can sometimes be portrayed quite negatively, maybe in the media, or you might have heard some, stories or personal stories that have not been so positive. But reaching out to talk about how you're feeling and, looking at what support might be available for you. Everyone will have a very different experience. And sort of talking about that and sharing that will hopefully get you, the right support that you need.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us today. Your calm and clear guidance, I'm sure, will help a lot of people who are navigating that journey with a loved one with dementia. And thank you to everyone for listening. I do hope you found this episode useful. Remember to check out our Care Advice Hub. You can find lots of practical advice and tips on navigating the care journey, whatever stage you're at. I've been Jo Cleary, your host from Unique Senior Care on the Care Podcast. We hope that you'll join us for the next episode.